I think burned in my mind from the summer of 2020 with all the BLM riots is that screenshot from CNN where the reporter's standing there with huge fires in the background claiming that these BLM protests are just like a tea party. I mean, it really does encapsulate exactly what the BLM protests were. You were on the ground. You're an investigative reporter. You embedded in these protests everywhere from, Portland with Antifa to Kenosha around after George Floyd, around the Kyle Rittenhouse stuff. I mean, you had to see some crazy stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And it's funny because 2020, we started out that year almost going to war with Iran. I mean,
Yeah.
when they attacked our embassy, I mean, that's how the year started, right? So it was, that was certainly like the sign of how crazy things were going to be. And so then when George Floyd happened in Minneapolis, I asked town hall, I said, hey, this is my specialty, covering protests, covering riots, send me. And at the time, we weren't technically allowed, because of COVID rules, we weren't technically allowed to travel on the company's dime because they didn't want kind of that liability. But credit to town hall, they recognize, okay, like this is going to be a big story. This is important. We're going to go to bat for you. Like, just like go. We'll deal with the internal stuff later. And so, yeah, I mean, just even with Minneapolis, it was nothing like I had ever seen before in terms of just how. Because I covered Charlottesville back in 2017. The difference with that was it was really concentrated by the park, but you could go like a couple blocks down the street and people were still just kind of going about their Sunday. I believe that was the day. But this was totally different. I mean, Miles was completely affected by where the protesters and rioters had gathered outside the third precinct at the police department there. So, I mean, it was just a complete breakdown in what we know to be a civilized society. And this is the United States. This is a major city. And it was basically almost like a Mogadishu a little bit because there was no law enforcement presence. Everything was thrown into chaos. By the time that I got there, the National Guard still hadn't been fully deployed. So it was really just a free-for-all.